All right, I do believe we are all systems go. So, welcome everybody to the Masters 2024 live chat. So, here on this episode, we are going to break down pretty much whatever you may need broken down for the Masters. We are going to talk about pretty much all types of action that you could have on this year's Masters tournament. We are going to break down what I think are some of the best bets on the board, as well as kind of how to bet this golf tournament and what to look for and what to avoid when betting this golf tournament. We're going to talk about how to win your office pool if you were doing any kind of office draft or office like pick 'em pool. We're going to tell you how to win those. And then we're going to talk about player props, DFS plays on DraftKings and FanDuel, and then one and done picks if you are playing any one and dones for the Masters, whether it be season long or whether it be just for the majors. So in any event, whatever game you're playing, we're going to have the answers for how to best attack those games and how to win at those games here this week and for this golf tournament that we all love. So if you are here watching live, go ahead, put a comment in the chat, drop whatever you need or want answered, right? So like whatever game you're playing, whatever golfer you want me to talk about, whatever game you want me to talk about, drop it in the chat. I'm here to help you guys. I'm not saying that I'm going to have the 100% foolproof answers to everything, but what I'm saying is I have put in a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of effort, on this tournament and figuring out this tournament and handicapping this tournament. So that way I can have good information and be most informed possible to make my picks and to help you make your picks heading into this Masters tournament. All right, so sitting here, it is a smooth 9:03. We're like rolling right on schedule here. So, like I said, if you guys need anything, put it in the chat. But we're going to talk about all those different game formats. Hopefully, be done in about an hour. But I would be more than happy to go longer if that is the case. Would have no issue doing so. So either way, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick swig Gatorade, and then we're going to dive into game number one, which is how to bet this golf tournament. If you've been to any of my live streams before, I know I've said this, but being a teacher, I would have thought that I was uniquely equipped to talk on camera for an hour, but it's actually tougher here than it is teaching it, because teaching, I'm actually not just straight talking for an hour. I'm kind of, getting a lot of input from the students and whatnot. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive in. So the first thing that I'm going to do is we're going to look at FanDuel Sportsbook and look at their odds page for the Masters. All right, so here we are looking at the odds board, and I got to be honest, when it comes to betting a golf tournament, it is really, really difficult to win an outright bet in golf. It just is. It's really a bet that, like, if you're just showing up casually betting the Masters, I don't recommend it. It's really difficult. It's probably the most difficult form of betting. You can go weeks without getting an outright better. I was very fortunate last week that I was on Akshay Bhatia to win at the Valero Texas Open. And really, that one was a combination of multiple things. I really loved his form coming in. I really loved how the course fit for him. And personally, I'm an Akshay fan. So, it was easy for me to make that bet, knowing that I was going to be rooting for it all weekend anyway, and didn't bet afford to lose, right? So if you're somebody who's just betting the Masters, who doesn't bet any other golf tournament, and you're looking to pick an outright winner, just bet Scotty Scheffler. Like, you are going to be winning what you would probably normally win on, any kind of NFL or college basketball or Major League Baseball parlay, right? With his odds being around 4.5 to 1. And he's so good at golf, and his floor is so high that he is going to be around on Sunday. Like, he's going to be in contention. He's going to be a factor in this golf tournament. You look at last year at the Masters, he was one of the best golfers in the field, tee to green, and he lost 4 strokes putting, and he ended up finishing 10th in that tournament. That's pretty solid. Like, that represents his floor, in my opinion. I don't see there being really a conceivable scenario where Scotty Scheffler finishes outside the top 15 of this golf tournament. The only thing that could throw a wrench in that is that his wife is currently very, very pregnant, and as somebody who has been there before, I get it. Just about 8 months ago, I was coaching football games with my phone in my pocket because my wife could call me at any time, and so pretty much the only way I could see him not being a factor in this golf tournament is if his wife goes into labor. Like, honestly, that would be the only thing that I think would take him out of contention. Now, some other guys that I like, though, like really Augusta National is in the Masters is not a tournament won by a whole lot of long shots. Danny Willett at about 50-1 and Patrick Reed at about 40-1, depending on where you see the number, is about the longest odds of the winners in the last decade. And so I really kind of find it to be a little bit of a fool's errand to try to bet a long shot to win this specific golf tournament. I really look past probably 60-1 would be my absolute limit. And if I were to bet somebody that was not Scotty Scheffler, I really like the number on Will Zalatoris at 40-1 here on FanDuel Sportsbook. He is a guy who pretty much shows up at major championships week or year in and year out. He did not play in any of the majors last year because of an injury, but he's taken 2 trips to Augusta National, and he finished 2nd and 6th in both those appearances. I think he's a guy that just the game that he plays suits major championship golf very well. He understands this course, having played at it twice. I think that's a pretty solid number. And 41, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck there with Will Zalatoris. Another one that I like is Brooks Koepka at plus 2,000, aka 20-1 here on FanDuel Sportsbook. Brooks has won 5 majors since 2017, and that's most of anybody in that time span. Last year, you could argue that he should have won the Masters. He was pretty much in the lead the whole way until Sunday when Jon Rahm kind of took over and never looked back. And I think that Brooks, in that experience, he came right back and won the PGA Championship. A lot of golf fans will tell you that Brooks is not playing well on LIV right now, but that's never really mattered. Brooks has never been a guy that needed recent form on the PGA Tour or needed form on LIV Golf to show up and play well in a major. So those would just be the guys that I would be looking at for an outright bet. Xander Schauffele, I really like personally. My model that I ran on yesterday's episode loves Xander Schauffele, but 14-1 is just not a price tag that I'm really a big fan of for a guy who has not closed the deal in a major championship yet in his career. But I do think can be profitable for this tournament is betting finishing positions. I think that if you have the time to sit down and actually do the math on a lot of these finishing positions, then that's like pretty solid, right? Like Scotty Scheffler to top 10, that's basically saying with minus 200 odds that's going to happen 67% of the time. And I don't think there's any such a thing as luck when it comes to sports betting, but I would personally have it more likely than 67% that Scotty Scheffler is going to top 10. And so you can parlay a Scotty top 10 with somebody else top 10 and just go about it that way. What I also like is these top end region bets that FanDuel Sportsbook offers, where you can kind of bet the top guys for a certain nationality or certain feature. Personally, the top South American market is one that I'm interested in. I actually have a bet on this one if I can scroll down to find it on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. The top South American, there's only 3 South Americans in the tournament. You've got Joaquin Niemann, Emiliano Grillo, and Camilo Villegas. And to me, Joaquin Niemann should be by and large the favorite here. Only minus 230 on FanDuel is a little bit of an insult, in my opinion. He is won twice on LIV this year. Also, World Touring season, he's playing really good golf. He also shapes the ball off the tee with a draw, which has been very beneficial over the course of time at Augusta National. So I do think Joaquin Niemann has a lot of things going for him. He only has 1 top 20 finish in a major in his career, and it was at Augusta National where he came in 19th. Emiliano Grillo, his best finish in a major is actually 16th at Augusta National, but that was also 8 years ago. So I really think that Joaquin Niemann should be more of a favorite than this minus 230, and I think that is a really, really solid number. That is a bet that I have placed personally. Now, another one that I like is the top senior bet, because I think this is Phil Mickelson's to lose, right? Like Phil Mickelson last year came into the Masters with absolutely zero form to speak of, was playing terrible golf in LIV, was a total non-factor in the LIV tournaments, and finished runner-up. It was quite incredible, but it just shows you the ceiling that Phil has at Augusta National at a course that he knows very, very well. He has made the cut here in 5 straight appearances, which is really, really solid. And really, I don't really feel the need to go back for that because you're just entering a different part of his career at that point. But I really like what Phil's done at Augusta National in his career. And these other guys, we're seeing Couples and Olafabo, are just going to be lucky to make the cut, whereas Phil is a guy that can make the cut and still have a chance at contending. I think that it's, whereas with these other guys, it's probably like a 50-50 proposition that they make the cut. I would say Phil probably has a better than 60% chance to make the cut. And if he's the only one that makes the cut, well, then you've instantly won your bet right there. You don't even need Phil to play well over the weekend. So I like that bet. The other one that I like, if I can find it, is the top debutante bet. So Ludwig Aubert and Wyndham Clark are the two favorites on this bet, according to FanDuel Sportsbook. But I do not necessarily like either of them at this tournament. Ludwig Aubert is great. Don't get me wrong. He won at the RSM Classic in really kind of dominant fashion. He's a really well-rounded golfer. But when you look at Ludwig, a lot of the courses that he has played better at have been shorter golf courses. Augusta National is a long track. So I just don't think that this necessarily fits what in his career. And I really don't think that he's going to be a guy that's got a really great chance to get 10 this week because of that. Wyndham Clark is the reigning winner of the U.S. Open, who has played very well on the PGA Tour this season. But off of the tee, Wyndham Clark plays a massive fade, which is not what you want as a right-handed hitter at Augusta National. A lot of these shots favor a draw ball flight for right-handed hitters. So I just don't think that he's going to be able to put himself in great position because of what he likes to hit off the tee, even though he does check a lot of boxes with the rest of his skill set for what Augusta National is going to ask him to do. So if I'm fading those two guys, I really like Akshay Bhatia and Steven Jaeger to be the low debutant. And the reason why is because Akshay Bhatia is coming off of the win at TPC San Antonio, where he was just outstanding in every single category. He gained over a stroke per round off the tee, on approach, and around the green, and gained over half a stroke per round putting. That's just a really well-rounded game. He's just really talented and really good. And I think that he's a guy that could end up winning this bet for that reason. Coming in off that win, coming also in off of the T11 at the Texas Children's Houston Open, where he was elite on approach in that category. And I just really think that Akshay Bhatia is the guy that I want for that low debutante market. And if I did not go with Akshay, I do think that this is not something that you necessarily have to only bet one guy for. I think that you can go with Steven Jaeger as well. I've actually bet on both of these guys for this, because if either one of them gets it, I'm going to be in really good shape. And Steven Jaeger, the reason why I like Jaeger is because he is a guy who is coming off of the win at the Texas Children's Houston Open. And that was a golf course and a golf tournament that was very much set up to be very similar to Augusta National. There's a lot of really long par fours, a lot of really long approach shots that are required, like you're going to see this week at Augusta National. And the chipping onto these greens at Memorial Park that week was at a point where it's coming from short grass. It's not coming from the rough or coming from bunkers. That's the case here at Augusta National. Pretty much all the runoff areas off the greens at Augusta are short grass. Well, like chipping, I do think that is going to benefit Jaeger well, is that he really exceeded in that environment. And really, you look at Jaeger's game as a whole, he excels at longer golf courses like the Mexico Open, where he finished T3, the Farmers Insurance Torrey Pines, where he finished T3. So I really do like the odds of either Jaeger or Bhatia ending up being low debutante. And like I said, you don't necessarily just have to bet one or the other. I think you can, kind of bet one of each and just hope and pray that they end up doing that. And I forgot to mention this also while we were talking about Akshay. I think Akshay makes a lot of sense as the low-handed for this week. I mentioned, my love for Phil Mickelson top senior market, but I think objectively, Akshay is in much better shape than Phil Mickelson right now. I think that he is a much better course fit for this course than Brian Harman. So I really do think Akshay in the top lefty market is going to be solid also. So there you have it. Those are all the bets that I am interested in here this week at Augusta. I'm going to keep looking as we go through Wednesday and closer to Thursday, but those are the ones that really catch my eye right now and the ones that I'm going to be making as we head into this Masters tour. All right, so let's go ahead right now, and I'm going to take a quick break because now we're going to transition on over into talking about player props, and I'm going to clip the audio so that way the people who are listening on audio can do that. So, like I said earlier, if you have any golf or any bet, anything that you want to talk about, put it in the live chat. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, more than happy to talk up any strategy, whatever that you might have. I'm here to help. Like I said, I'm not promising to have all the answers, but I do a ton of research. I'm ready, and I can help you guys get ready for making this a profitable Masters tournament for you as well. All right, now, next up, we are going to take a look at player props. So this would be if you are playing on Underdog or Prize Picks. This would be the segment for you, right? So we're going to take a quick look at the board on Underdog. All right, here we go. So looking on Underdog Fantasy. Oh, hold on. Why is the page Roger right now? There we go. So looking at the board on Underdog Fantasy, what's interesting with this is I think that you can look at the averages of what happened last year is kind of a little bit of a dictator for what makes for a good prop bet here this year. So when it comes to the Masters last year, the average fairways hit in a round was 10.5. The driving accuracy last year was 75%. So 10.5 fairways in accuracy was the exact average. The greens in regulation last year was 10.8, which ranked out at 60% over all the holes, and that includes the golfers who missed the cut and they only got their 2 rounds, and the golfers who made the cut, you got all 4 rounds of them. So those numbers might be slightly inflated from the first 2 rounds on Thursday and Friday. The scoring average of the whole tournament last year was 73, which was 1 over par. So basically, you can use those numbers to kind of say, like, hey, does Underdog expect this guy to do better or worse than average? And last year, also, round 1 was pretty generous for scoring. 16 players shot in the 60s in the first round last year. So really, there's a lot of opportunity on this Thursday to try to find some guys that can score better than average or score in the 60s. It's also worth noting that for round 1, weather can be an issue. There's currently projected to be a lot of rain in Augusta, Georgia on Wednesday night, which could make the course a lot softer and a lot more scoreable as we head into Thursday. It could also rain out some of the Thursday morning tee times, which would not be good either if it's still very rainy and very windy, or they have to get delayed. So that would obviously not be optimal. But if we get rain on Wednesday night that clears up, you're going to end up with a soft golf course that is very, very scoreable, right? So what I might look at is I really like, just off the bat right here, for round 1, I like Brooks Koepka going lower than 71.5 strokes. Brooks Koepka got out to a 7 under start last year at the Masters. Pretty much when he plays in majors, he likes to get off the fast starts. He likes to play well in round 1. So I really like the idea of Brooks starting off lower than 71.5. Now, another one that I like, we already talked about this guy. Well, we did not. Tony Finau. I like him to go under 73 strokes. All you need is for him to shoot even par. This is a guy who is coming in as a supremely hot ball striker. What I mean by that is he is currently gaining a lot of strokes to the field with his driver and with his irons as opposed to with his putter. And you look at what Tony Finau has done recently. He finished second at that Houston Open where he was really, really solid with every club in his bag except the putter. But you go back and look at his history at the Masters, and it's not bad with putter. And it's pretty solid in every other category. So I really like what Tony Finau is doing, and I think if he can get off to a good start, lower than 73 on round 1 on Thursday, I think that's a really solid bet for Tony Finau. Another one that I like is Cam Young getting an eagle. Now, this is one of the peppers on Underdog, but basically these par 5s here at Augusta National are eagleable for long hitters, and Cam Young is the longest of the long hitter. So I don't necessarily think that you have to parlay every selection here that I'm saying into one slip. I do like the concept of Cam Young getting it when he's going to be able to par 5s into more than not. And so that, he's going to get pretty much 4 chances at it. And you're getting very good odds on that, in my opinion, with it being a 3x bet. Now, another one I think we can target is, I think that really some of the fairways and regulation stats are very generous. And I think you could look for an accurate hitter and try to go above on the fairways and regulation stats. So for instance, Tommy Fleetwood is currently sitting at 10.5 fairways hit. So that's just requiring Tommy Fleetwood to go above average, get 11. It's absolutely possible. Another guy that I think could do that, I saw him on here earlier, but I'm really struggling to find him right now, would be Corey Connors. Corey Connors is one of the more accurate drivers of the golf ball in all the PGA Tour, and you can get him to go over the field average 10.5. I think that's really solid as well. And also, when you see the 16, 17, 18 strokes, 11 would be par for that. And 18 is generally pretty tough. 16 and 17 are usually par holes. 18 can play pretty tough. They're not a super long hitter. So that's just some stuff to keep in mind as you look for an Underdog slip. I have not had a chance to look at the entire board yet, but I do know that after I saw the fairways and regulation numbers from last year and saw some of the props that they were offering on a lot of the different guys. I did think that was going to be a really solid opportunity to get some guys at an advantageous number, with them only needing to hit the field average in terms of fairways and regulation. Now, Underdog also offers drafts, which I really enjoy. They offer the single round draft Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. They also do the Albatross, which is their major season draft. And the Underdog drafts, y'all, are largely an unsolved game, in my opinion. There's no secret science to it, no secret sauce to it. It's really about getting the guys you like and just hoping that you're right? Like, don't be afraid to draft different from ADP. Don't be afraid to think outside the box, because it'll just make your lineup a little more unique. But it's about getting the guys that you like and hoping that you're right. Like, there's no real super duper science to it. I will say, for the single round drafts, if we do get a weather advantage, being able to know when the tee times are and to stack that weather advantage would be a pretty big deal. But for like the major season best ball drafts, the Albatross, like, just get the guys that you think are going to play well. And I don't think that there's that much to it other than that. Now, you can look at all the data, you can grind all the data and do your best to figure out who you think that's going to be. But I don't think that it's that much of a, like, it's not that much of a game that is solved and has like a super formula to it to get it right. All right, so that does it for the player props section. So I'm going to go ahead and snip the audio. And then we are going to move on to the office pool section. So we're going to talk about how you can win an office pool or the like by picking the right golfers here at the Masters. So I'm going to go ahead and get my screen set up. Got to find it. There it is. All right, so you can see an example of a pool that I'm actually in, and all these pools, a lot of them are asking you to pick like different groups of golfers or pick one group from a different group of golfer. So basically, I've kind of started filling mine out here, but we've got 6 groups. The guy that is running this pool that I'm in, he is using the Data Golf rankings to make this pool, which is, I think, a really like nose ball move to Data Golf rankings. Data Golf is a super website if you are betting or golf, and it kind of allows you to know like the behind the scenes and the true strokes gainers of a lot of different guys, and it uses strength of field to formulate these rankings. So I really do think that this is a really solid ranking system that the guy running the pool used. But anyway, you can see I've got 6 groups to pick from, and I've got to pick from one golfer per group in order to try to fill out the best lineup. The rules of the pool that I'm in are, which, first off, you should know the rules of the pool you're playing in, right? So the one that I'm playing in, they use the top 4 scores of the 6 golfers that you pick. So in other words, it would greatly benefit me to get 4 golfers through the cut. And if I were to get 5 or 6 golfers through the cut, then that would allow me to have a little more of a buffer. So that way I could have one golfer play poorly after making the cut and still end up with a solid lineup. Now, with that being said, I know that going in, if you want to win one of these, you're going to probably have to have the tournament winner, right? But you also don't want to have any big duds in your lineup. Like, you can get away with, not having the winner if you don't have any duds. And so for me, looking at group 1, and this group 1 is going to be for probably any pool that you're in, I'm picking Scott. I understand that a lot of other people are going to pick Scotty. I know he's going to be the popular pick, and I know I'm going to have to beat a lot of other people to win this pool if they're picking Scotty as well. But think about it like picking UConn on the NCAA tournament, right? Like we did the big bracket show where, yes, it's obviously harder to win your pool if you pick UConn and 30% of the pool picks UConn. But like UConn ends up as the national champion, well, then you needed UConn, right? And so Scotty is very much in the same way to me. I think he has a floor of about a top 12 finish. So basically, picking Scotty, I'm kind of guaranteeing that I'm going to get one through the cut and count among my 4 golfers here in the format of this pool. And knowing that if I have Scotty in group 1, I can get different from everybody else in the other groups. So in this group 2 that we've got here, I am picking Tony Finau. We talked about him already. I really like where Finau's game is. I love his ball striking numbers. I really think that he's coming into Augusta National in great form, and this is his course that he has always played pretty well. Now, I think that what this does is allow me to get a little different, because, quick side note, know the people you're playing in the pool. If you're playing against a bunch of casual golf fans, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson, Ricky Fowler, they're all going to be incredibly popular. So you're going to be different by formulaically making your lineup with guys different from that. So here in Group 2, where Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas are likely to be the popular picks, I'm going to go ahead and drop on down to Tony Finau, which is hopefully a guy that not a whole lot of other people are going to pick, and hopefully not a lot of other people started their lineups. Scheffler. Now, Group 3, I'm getting different. Personally, I really like Shane Lowry in this Group 3. I really do like Siwoo Kim as well, but I'm going to go with Steven Yeager. I think he's a guy that nobody else is really going to play, nobody really knows about, and I think that his skill set with what we talked about earlier really aligns well here for Augusta National, so he's going to be my Group 4 pick, or Group 3 pick. Group 4, I'm going to go back to being a little bit chalky. I'm going to take Brooks Koepka. I think that this is a situation where he is by and large the best player in this group, and by and large the most likely player in this group to win the tournament. And so, I'm willing to, kind of eat the chalk here on Brooks Koepka and back with Scotty Scheffler in Group 1, because I just think that these two guys have so much more win equity and so much less bust equity than everybody else in the same group that they're next to. And then in Group 5, I really do like Will Zalatoris, but I think a lot of people are going to pick Will Zalatoris if they know anything about his major history. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with Akshay Bhatia here for my Group 5 pick. We already talked about how I think his skill set aligns perfectly here for Augusta National, and how I think that he's a really solid, top debutante bet. And I really do think Akshay Bhatia is going to show up this week and play well here at Augusta. Group 6 is really kind of like the field here in my pool that I'm playing, and you may have one like this similar in your office pools as well. But basically, you want to just try to get somebody in your Group 6 that is likely to make the cut and has the upside to give you a top 10, top 5 finish, right? So there's a lot of former champions here in this group. Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, Sergio Garcia, Justin Rose almost won here. And so those are going to be so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of avoid that little group, and I'm going to pick Thorbjorn Olesen. Again, not a guy that a whole lot of casual golf fans are going to have heard of, but he's coming in off of a really solid performance at the Blair Open, where he really drove the ball well, really hit his irons well, and so he's going to allow me to be different. So even though I went with the very chalky picks of Scheffler and Brooks Koepka, I'm able to be different by going with Zalatoris, or by Tony Finau, Steven Yeager, Akshay Bhatia, or Will Zalatoris, and then Thorbjorn Olesen as my Group 6 selection. So, kind of, this is a natural little segue here, because we're going to use this office pool to kind of segue right into talking about DFS. But, basically, if you're doing one of these office pools, y'all, it's all about knowing the format pool you're in, knowing, kind of anticipating who people are going to pick, how you can be different, and how you can capitalize on that. But like I said, I don't feel the need to be different when it comes to Scotty Scheffler or Brooks Koepka, but I will be different elsewhere, and hope that I'm right on those guys in order to win my tournament, because I'm going to have a lineup that nobody else is going to have duplicate. All right, so that's it for the office pool section. So again, I'm going to take a quick little breather to snip off the audio. And then we're going to start talking DFS. This is probably something that the casual fan knows the least about, if you are a super duper casual golf fan. But if you are a regular to this podcast, you probably know that I talk DFS all the time. I love DFS, and DFS is a great way to get exposure into playing fantasy golf. All right, so now let's talk DFS. So I am looking at the board on DraftKings, and really, DraftKings week, they're doing the millionaire contest, which they do for every major, which I absolutely love. I've never came close to winning $1 million, but there's always the thought and kind of the lingering anticipation that, hey, this could be the day, this could be life-changing money, right? And so it's always a little bit of an exhilaration rush to play, right? And in fact, there was one Open Championship back in 2018 where I was winning $50,000 after day one, and I was already looking forward to the weekend sweat, and then Justin Thomas ended up, just totally crapping the bed on and missing the cut and ruining all my chances. So, this tournament here, when it comes to Millionaire Maker, you're going up against 470,000 other lineups, which is a lot. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to find ways to be unique. So I think that the number one way to be unique is to understand how not to be unique. So I think there are going to be two very common builds this week in the Millionaire Maker on DraftKings. And so I'm going to identify what builds are and then tell you how you can get these builds. So I think the first most common build is going to be starting with Scotty Scheffler at the top. We talked about him already, how good Scotty Scheffler is, right? Like he's just best golfer in the world, most likely win the tournament, most expensive golfer on DraftKings. That is okay, right? Now, when it comes to building a DFS lineup for the Masters is slightly different from a lot of other tournaments that we see on the PGA Tour calendar throughout the year. On a lot of tournaments that are on the rest of the PGA Tour calendar, a lot of courses on the PGA Tour do not do the best job of separating the world's best from just the golfers at the bottom of the PGA Tour. And so you end up with a lot more situations where values and long shots can end up playing really, really well. Well, for the Masters, that's not as much the case. Historically speaking, when you play DFS for the Masters, balanced builds end up ranking really, really well and not getting to the bottom of the field, because the bottom of the field at the Masters is usually just a bunch of old guys and a bunch of guys that kind of luck their way into the tournament and a bunch of others. And so really it's advisable to go all the way down to the bottom of the board. What I think a lot of people are going to do this week when they start their lineup off with Scotty Scheffler is kind of tail it with a lot of guys in the $7,000 range. I started looking earlier this week. I do think it is possible to play something like a Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele start, but that really puts a lot of constraints on the rest of your lineup. You're going to have to play multiple 6K range guys to make that construction work. So I think what a lot of people are going to do if they start off with Scheffler is going straight down to the 7K range and play somebody like a Shane, somebody like a Sahith Theegala, play somebody like a Tommy Fleetwood, and then I'm left with 7,300 per golfer left. So let's go with Russell Henley and then Corey Connors. Boom. There you have it. There is your instant, easy build, chalky lineup. I think the Scheffler is going to come in really highly owned. I think that all five guys that I just clicked are going to come in really, really highly owned. So while this construction makes a lot of sense, how could I make it different? Well, the first thing you could do is you could swap out one of these high-owned players for another just point blank, right? So what if I instantly just swapped out Tommy Fleetwood and made it Akshay Bhatia? Well, first off, now I like that lineup a little bit more, but also now I'm going to be a little bit more unique because I'm leaving salary on the table as well as getting off of what I anticipate to be the very chalky, very high-owned Tommy Fleetwood. Now, we can also change the entire construction and build, right? So now, what if I get off of Shane Lowry, which, by the way, if we're anticipating bad weather this weekend, Shane Lowry is absolutely, in my opinion, I do really much Lowry. So what if I, and that leaves me $8,300 on the table. Well, that allows me to get up to max homa, but I want to go more than that. I want to get a little bit more different from this initial chalky build. So what if I get off Sahith Theegala now? Because I think Sahith Theegala, I do think that this is a very good tournament for him. He finished 9th last year in his debut. He's been great here at Augusta National in the one time that he played it. But I think that he's going to be very chalky, and I think that with how the rest of this build works out, I'm not sure I want to pair Scheffler and these other guys with Sahith. So what if I go with the rest of my money to Tony Finau at 8,600? And then go all the way down to, let's say, Siwoo Kim. Oh, no, I like Steven Yeager better. I like Siwoo Kim. I also like Steven Yeager. So, boom, now I'm left with a build where I started with Scotty Scheffler. I seconded it with Tony Finau. And then my remaining 4 plays are still in the 7K range: Corey Connors, Russell Henley, Akshay Bhatia, and Steven Yeager. So there you have it. There is a slightly less chalky build that still uses, fairly similar constructions. Now, what I will say is this, though. If you want to be true this week, find a play that knows talking about because they're not playing really all that well coming in, and see if that guy can end up going off. And what I mean by that is there's a few guys that fit that bill. Just in the 9K range, Victor Hovland and Patrick Cantlay, they're playing like garbage right now. No one's going to play them. And these are two guys that if the Masters was 6 months ago, would have been two of the favorites to win the tournament. And so you can really get some leverage on the rest of the field if you're willing to go with a Hovland or a Cantlay. Other guys that I think fit that description, I think that nobody is going to play Justin Thomas. He made the caddy switch this week, media scrutiny, and I don't think that is necessarily going to be a factor that makes people want to play him. And so he would be a guy that I would absolutely consider that is going to be pretty low owned. Also, I think in the 7K range, I think that Jason Day and Sungjae Im are going to be very lowly owned. However, there is nothing encouraging about what their game looks like coming in. So what I think you really want to do to find the happy medium here is find one guy that's going to be super lowly owned, or find a way to, if you're playing guys to be decently owned, find a way that's unique of getting to him, like that Scheffler Finau build that we just had. Now, also, here's another thing that's worth noting. This is the Masters. There's only 90 players in the field. And really, if you cut out the bottom of the field, you can get to about 70 to 75. And so what that means is if everybody's playing 6 players, everybody is going to average like 8 to 9% ownership among the guys that people are actually playing. So don't be afraid to play a guy just because, you know, you think they're going to be 20 to 30% owned, because that's not actually that much above the average last week. Last year at this very tournament, Brooks Koepka at $7,600 was very highly owned, and he was a guy that you had to have because he ended up being the tournament runner-up. So don't be afraid of playing some guys. They're highly owned. Just find unique ways of getting to them. So what's another unique way we can play Scotty Scheffler? Well, I do think you can go down into the 6K range. I think that most people who play DFS know that it is not generally the play at Augusta National to go into the 6K range. So I think by getting guys who are all the way down here, you're going to instantly make yourself more unique. Now, the problem is finding the right guys who are going to go down here. Well, if you go all the way down to the bottom of the guys that people are actually going to play, I think that Denny McCarthy and Taylor Moore are going to be very highly owned because they make a lot of sense. Denny McCarthy played really well at the Texas Open last week. Everybody watched him almost win that tournament by getting scorching hot on the back nine. He's going to be popular for that reason. Taylor Moore has been playing really solid golf lately. T2 at the Houston Open, which is a tournament that we've talked about time and time again, is a pretty solid comparison to Augusta National. So as much as I like both of those guys personally, I don't necessarily think I want to go Scotty with both of those guys. So what, I flip the build entirely, and instead of starting with Scotty, I start with like Rahm or Rory. Let's go Rory for this example, and then go down to Taylor Moore at 6,400. And now I've got an average remaining salary of 8,200. So now I can get back up to Justin Thomas. I can get Tony Finau, and I'm left with an average of 77.50 per player. So we already talked about how we like Steven Jaeger, boom, and I'm left with 8,400, which will allow me to get to, oh man, I was hoping I was going to get, he is 8,500. So let's go Matt Fitzpatrick at 79, and I'm leaving $500 on the table. I have a build that starts with Rory McIlroy, takes Justin Thomas and Tony Finau out of the 8K range, and then Matt Fitzpatrick, Steven Jaeger, and Taylor Moore to round it out. So those are just some ways that you can get to some kind of unique builds by, first by starting with Scotty Scheffler, but by then going down from Scheffler to Rory McIlroy. Now, the second most common build that I think people are going to do for the Millionaire Maker is to just get a lot of different 9K. So you may see this type of build start with Brooks Koepka, but I don't think a whole lot of people are going to be playing Wyndham Clark. We've already mentioned I don't think that this is a great spot for Wyndham Clark. I just don't. So this build is either going to start with Brooks Koepka or Xander Schauffele. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to be playing Rahm or McIlroy because everybody's going to be on Scheffler, or they're going to be doing this construction where they start with Koepka and Schauffele. So for instance, let's start with Koepka and Schauffele. And now we've got an average remaining of 74.75. Well, actually, let me switch out Koepka. Well, let's make this a little more 9K. So what if I go Schauffele and Matsuyama to start it off? That's a little better. Now I've got an average remaining salary of 77.75. So now I can do pretty much a similar construction to what we did from the Scotty Scheffler construction with chalk, where I now go down to Russell Henley. And then I go with something like Shane Lowry, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sahith Theegala. Boom. I've got $300 left on the table, and I've hit all the chalky plays in the 7K range, and then started my build with Hideki and Xander, right? So that's going to be a very common build here this week, is to use those guys where you don't go below like Russell Henley, and instead, just kind of end up with this really balanced construction. So how can I change that to be a little less chalky, but still a similar concept, right? All right, so let's start off with Xander, because I do like Xander this week. I also do like Will Zalatoris this week, so let's start off with him. But instead of going Lowry and Fitzpatrick, let's switch it up a bit. Let's go down to Steven Jaeger, and let's actually go with Siwoo Kim here at 7,100, and that will allow me to get up to Justin Thomas or Tony Finau. Let's go Justin Thomas. So now how I've constructed it, we started off our build with Xander Schauffele and Will Zalatoris. And then after that went with Justin Thomas, Sahith Theegala, who I still think is pretty chalky, but I still think is a pretty solid play. And then ended it with Steven Yeager and Siwoo Kim. So what you guys have just seen here is a way to get off of the chalky roster constructions, but still end up with guys that I like for this tournament and guys that I think are going to play well for this tournament. I'm going to have to actually see how these lineups end up doing. But I think if you truly want to win the Millionaire Maker, you might want to even go less chalky of a build than I have and play guys that just nobody is going to play. And so what if we just went with the nobody's playing this build? So I don't think much people are going to play Jon Rahm. I don't think anybody's going to play Patrick Cantlay. So we start off with those two guys, and we have an average remaining of 73.50. Now, obviously, nobody's going to play these guys near here at the very bottom, right? So what if I mix that up just a little bit? And what if I go with Adam Hadwin at 6,600? I actually like Hadwin a little bit this week. Now I've got an average remaining of 7,600 for 3 players. And again, I want to avoid the guys that everybody's going to play. So no Fleetwood, no Connors, no Theegala, no Henley. So how can I finish this build out? Well, let's go with Chris Kirk at $6,900, who I actually like this week. He's rating out as a really solid long iron player. He rated out really well in my custom model on yesterday's episode. And so now I've got 79.50 left. Let's go. There's a lot of guys in this little low 8K range that I don't think anybody's going to play. I don't think anybody's going to play Morikawa, Homa Bryson, or Sam Burns. So that's sort of kind of a whole ignored range. So instead of going what would be a chalky finish of Lowry and Fitzpatrick, let's go with DeChambeau and even then I could end up with Sahith Theegala at the end, or I could just go with Jason Day or Tyrrell Hatton. Let's go with Tyrrell Hatton to finish that off. So now in this build that I've gotten, the nobody's going to play this build. We've got Jon Rahm, Patrick Cantlay, Bryson DeChambeau, Tyrrell Hatton, Chris Kirk, and Adam Hadwin. The real answer in DFS this week is probably somewhere that's a happy medium between the chalky of chalky builds or the nobody's going to play this build. But I think that keeping that construction in mind, knowing that the common construction is going to be Scotty imbalanced or 2 9K guys imbalanced, I think that knowing that those are going to be the 2 popular constructions will allow you to know where the ownership is and where you can get different and where you can get unique in order to make yourself a lineup that is going to help you win $1 million this year's week. So that does it for the portion of the show. So the only last thing that we had to talk about is going to be one and done, and then we are going to be all done with the Masters live chat, y'all. Like I said, if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, ask about, put it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to get to it. But otherwise, we've got one section left, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, so now we are talking one and done. So let's talk season-long one and done first, and then let's go with the major-only one and done, which I know a lot of people are playing starting this week. So in season-long done, the question is this week, to live or not to live, right? Because these live guys like Jon Rahm, Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, Kim Smith, these guys we only get to use 4 times all year. And so if you're playing your one and done optimally, then obviously you're going to want to play some of the best golfers in the world over the course of your one and done, right? So the question is this week, do you opt to use one of those 4 spots, which will open up 4 more spots, hopefully along the line from other great golfers down the road? I think that that's optimally the move. But here's the thing. You got to find a way to do that while playing your position. If you're sitting at the front of the pack this week, just play Jon Rahm, because he is the clear and obvious best live player, in my opinion. He is the clear and obvious play this week because he's the defending champion. And so I think if you're at the front of the pack, a lot of people are going to go Jon Rahm, so you can be afforded to go with Jon Rahm. Now, if you are in the middle or back of the pack, I want to think a little bit more outside the box. If you're at the middle or back of the pack, it might be a PGA Tour golfer. However, we're still pretty early in the course of the one and done season. So I think that you can still go with the live guy this week, even if you are near the middle or the back of the pack, and hope to kind of gain ground as we go through the season. And then maybe near the later majors like the US Open or the Open Championship, maybe then you can go with a non-live golfer for that major, right? Now, in terms of thinking about the majors though, we talk about John Rahm as the chalky play here, but I think of John Rahm as being a guy really good course fit for either the PGA Championship or the US Open. So I think I can gain leverage on a lot of the field by not going with John Rahm this week and instead going with, let's say, Brooks Koepka this week. And so that is going to be my pick in a lot of one and dones, not only because I think Brooks is a great pick for this tournament, but because I think what a lot of people are going to do with their live guys is they are going to play Rahm at the Masters and then Koepka at either the PGA or the US Open. And so I could be ending up in a situation where if I'm playing Koepka at the Masters and Rahm at the PGA or the US Open, the field if Koepka outperforms Rahm, which is a very good possibility, or Rahm outperforms Koepka at the PGA or the US Open. Also keep in mind some of the other better golfers on LIV, like Bryson DeChambeau, like Dustin Johnson, I think are much better fits for the PGA Championship and the US Open than this week at the Masters. So you can go with one of those guys at that tournament as well. But I do think the way that LIV is currently constructed, the way one and done plays out, I think that the two whales this week are going to be John Rahm and Brooks Koepka. And I would rather get myself extra leverage by playing Brooks Koepka and hoping that he is able to slip on the green jacket for the first time. Now, let's talk about if you're playing a major only one and done, which this is a super unique format because you only get 4 shots. Now maybe there's some more unique major only one and dones out there, like a 2 and done or a pick 3 where you can only use them once. But either way, if I'm playing the 4 majors and I am playing a one and done this week at Augusta National, I want to pick a guy who is very well set up at Augusta National, but not very well set up for the other major calendar year. So who might that be? Well, Scottie Scheffler is the best golfer in the world. So could he win at the PGA Championship or the US Open or the Open Championship? Yeah, he's Scottie Scheffler. He can win anywhere. Rory McIlroy has won the US Open before, has won the PGA Championship twice. So could he win, has won the Open Championship also. So could he win any of those other majors? Yes, he could. Do I feel like you need to play Rory here at Augusta? No. We've already talked about, I think John Rahm sets up really well at the PGA Championship and the US Open, as does Wyndham Clark. So I do think that you could save a lot of those guys' events. I want a guy this week who has a great history at Augusta National and not great history at the other events. So if you're looking a little further down the board, that would be a guy like Hideki. That would be a guy like Sahith Theegala, a guy like Jordan Spieth, a guy like Tony Finau, maybe Justin Thomas, maybe Will Zalatoris. Those are 6 names right there that I have more faith in winning this week at Augusta National than at any of the other majors that they're going to tee it up in at the PGA, the US Open, or the Open Championship. Now, if you want a guy who genuinely can win at all 4 majors, but I don't think anybody's going to play at Augusta National, Xander Schauffele. He's got a really well-balanced game. He has finished runner-up at Augusta National twice. He has finished runner-up this season. He has looked really good this season. He just hasn't capped it off and put it together in a win. And I think that he very well could win this term here at Augusta National. I think that Xander Schauffele makes a lot of sense for a majors-only one and done here this week at Augusta National. All right, so there you have it, y'all. We've gone about 50 minutes, and we have all different types of games and formats for the Masters this week. We talked best bets. We talked prop bets. We talked DFS. We talked, one and done, all that stuff. So if you guys got any other questions, anything you want to talk about, put it in the chat. Let me know so that way we can go ahead and get to it. Let's see. Looking in the chat here, I don't know how to pull it up on my screen. I haven't figured that out on StreamYard yet. But seeing Nathaniel says, what are the chances on making a hole-in-one 16, and who would have the best odds of doing so? So I would say the best chances, or the chances of making a hole-in-one on 16, I think are pretty likely to happen on Saturday or Sunday. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can recall just in my time that Masters Sunday pin on 16 where they put it like kind of beneath that little ridge. There tends to be a lot of hole-in-ones on 16 at Augusta National. I would say that if you're looking to make a bet on that, I think that's fairly likely to happen on Sunday, not on the other days. Friday, they kind of put it on like the back of the hill on the green, which is really hard to get to, really hard to make one. So if you're looking to do that, I would definitely say Sunday would be much more likely for a hole-in-one on 16. In terms of who would have the best odds of doing so, I have no idea how to answer that. I do know that Jordan Spieth just hit a hole-in-one last week. So whether you want to go off of, this guy has clearly had a knack for hitting hole-in-ones, or maybe he just hit his quota and he's not going to hit one, for a long, long time. Like, you could go either way on that. But I would definitely say that the hole-in-one on hole 16, fairly likely to happen on Sunday this year as opposed to any other day. And that might not end up happening, but I'm going by what the math and what the pin locations are telling me are going to happen. So I hope that answered your question very well. All right. So with that being said, if there's anything else you guys get, you can go ahead and put it in the live chat. If not, we are going to go ahead and sign off for the night. So remember, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe. Help me out. It really does help me out a ton when you guys subscribe. If you're listening to this on audio after the fact, please go ahead and rate and review the podcast. A ton of you guys do that. And while you're at it on YouTube, please like this video. The likes help the channel get noticed, helps the stream get more views. And so I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. But other than that, y'all, that is pretty much all I got this week for the Masters. Hopefully I was able to give you guys plenty of information to win in either betting, props, DFS, one and done, whatever it may be. Hopefully I was able to give you guys the information that you need to win whatever game you're playing this week. And hopefully I gave you guys a little bit of entertainment along the way also. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Best of luck to you this week, whatever game you're playing. But we are going to go ahead and sign off and end this live stream right now. Best of luck to you guys. See you guys next time.